Well, a very good evening. Welcome to this edition of Breeding to Win. We're here in the Lighthouse Bar at the world famous Blue Peter. And what a glorious day down in the Western Cape again. It's been a fantastic Cape Summer of Champions. We've looked forward to certainly going forward to February, where we've got a host of other race meetings as well. But a lot of action moving up to Johannesburg as well. But on the 21st of February, we have the Cape Town Prawn Festival, and we're certainly looking forward to participating in that. But here at Blue Peter, we're going to take you through what's proving to be a very popular winner in this year's JMB Met. None other than Futura. Well, Brett Crawford, he's had the favourite of the last couple of years when he had Jackson. He sent out Futura and he won with quite a lot in hand. You've got to say, a very impressive performance by the son of Dynasty. Well, the Breeding to Win team caught up with John Freeman and the connections of Futura, and we look at his past performances culminating in the win in the 2015 JMB Met.
That strikes the front with 100 meters left to go, and Futura is drawing clear. Futura wins the JMB Met.
Ian Longmore selected the horse at the same time that we did, without us knowing it. Jack and I went to see the horse strangely on our own, because we normally have a whole entourage walking around the sales that we're part of, and on this occasion we were alone. This colt walked out, and Jack and I just grabbed Jack's sleeve and I said, "This is ours." And I promise you, it was as simple as that. The moment we saw him move out of the box, we decided we were going to buy him. We didn't realize that we were going to have to pay as much as we did for him, because in my mind, I like to conceptually steal horses at the sale. But Ian proved to be a strong adversary. We didn't know until after we'd actually got the slip in my box that Ian walked in and said, "Hey, you guys, it's impossible to beat. Can I have a share?" And then, of course, because Ian allowed us to, he outbid us on Jackson. And we did exactly the same thing. Went to him and said, "Hey, how about letting us have a share?" And Jack got half the horse from Ian, so we felt it only fair to let him do that. And it's a dream. It really is a dream.
You know, it's always hard to draw comparisons, but you know, Jackson was exceptionally talented. He just actually was unfortunate that he got to a point in his career where he stressed about a lot of things, and you know, he took his racing very hard. So you know, both times after he ran in the Queen's Plate, he had heat exhaustion, and you know, to win the following Group 1 races, you can't have any flaws in your prep, and I think that's basically the only thing that held him back. Whereas Futura is just totally the opposite. You know, nothing phases him. He's the most relaxed horse you'll ever come across. I mean, you know, the standard joke is everyone says the grooms have to pull him around the parade ring. But the minute the jockey gets on and you see him, he just livens up and he knows what he's here to do. And I think that's his trademark asset. He really, at home, he lies down a lot. He's always lying down. Apparently his father was the same. I don't know, but John Freeman tells me that Dynasty used to lie down all the time. So you know what, he saves his energy, and that's what makes him a true champion, apart from the fact that he's got the ability that very few horses have.
Got a fantastic turn of Futura. He's very similar to Pocket Power at work at home. Doesn't show lots at all. I mean, going into the race, Brett was working him with his horses as weak as possible, just so he could beat them. And but he was just so well in himself, and he was so confident.
You know, from the time I got him, he he just did everything right. And to be honest, he never showed a lot on the tracks at all. You know, he would just do what he had to do. He wasn't a strong worker. But credit to Glenn Hatch, you know, from the first time Glenn ever sat on him, he said to me, "Brett, this horse gives me a feel." Glenn was spot on, you know. I mean, this horse just kept improving. Every time we raced him, I mean, he won his debut start over 1200, which I didn't think he could win, and he did. And then from then on in, he just got better and better. And, you know, I mean, he's only ever run in 4 Group 1s now, and he's won 3 of them. And in the July, he ran a close-up 3rd. So it just shows you, you know, Glenn was spot on, and yeah, just an amazing horse to train.
He's a fantastic horse to ride. He's so easy to work with. I can't even tell you. He's probably one of the easiest horses in the world to ride. And yeah, he drops it completely. If you want him to commit and be a little bit closer, he can. He's got a fantastic action and a turn of foot. So when you do ask him, he covers ground and he picks it up quickly. And yeah, he's a kind of horse that even if you are in a little bit of trouble, you seem to get out of it, because instead of the gaps running away from you, you're running into the gaps, and yeah, it just makes riding him so much easier. Yeah, well, I was drawn 9, and I had Louis the King drawn on my inside, and I was always sort of going to ride my race to be within a length or two of Louis the King, because he was always a horse that I was a little bit worried about. And we jumped out and we were going along, and I was watching him. He got in on the rail about probably 2 lengths in front of me, and I was always watching him, and he was going quite well. And my race just worked out so nicely. I got one off the rail, and I had Carl on my inside, and like I said in my interviews, when you got Carl on your inside, those big races, you know you're in the right place. And yeah, I just had such a lovely race, and I didn't get any bumps or anything. If nothing went wrong, and I was just so confident when we were going through about the 1200. I thought, geez, it's going to take a real smart one to beat me now, because I always knew I could outsprint them. And we came into the straights, and instead of switching out and going for a clear run, I sort of just bided my time, and all the gaps opened, and he sprinted away to win a good race.
It's Futura that strikes the front with 100 meters left to go, and Futura is drawing clear. Futura wins the JMB Met. Close behind that, Gold Onyx and Helderberg Blue in a photo. Then came Talina back in 4th.
He found himself in the middle of the field, but he was travelling so well, in fact maybe a tad too well. Came into the straight, and Bernard took the option of going in, which we thought was quite frightening, and my heart sank. And then a gap opened up. Bernard started to move into the gap, and the gap closed. So I had somebody say, oh, well, you know, you're lucky the gap opened up for you. I said, yeah, I'm unlucky that it closed again. It was just sheer brilliance on Bernard's part for timing it to perfection, and the courage of the horse that got him through. He's a good horse.
Yeah, I think it just shows you the caliber of horse that he is, you know. Slow pace, fast pace, whatever they want to do, he's up to the task, and I agree the faster they'd gone would have probably been better for him. But these good horses, that's what makes them champions. They can turn a bad situation and make the best out of it.
I've been really fortunate to ride some really good horses in the race, and previously won it twice with, talking about the JMB, I've won it twice with Pocket Power, and it was just nice to get on a really smart horse like Futura again and have a really good chance of winning it. And I'm just so happy that everything went according to plan, and he's a really smart horse, and he won really well.
We've had trials and tribulations in this race. We won it 12 years ago with Angus and waited a long time to get a horse good enough to run again, and we had Jackson 2 years in a row, favourite 2 years in a row, and obviously the disappointments of both those years. But what a pleasure, and what a way to win. I mean, the way he came through them and just put the field to bed, it was scintillating.
Truly, I wanted to win the Met more than I wanted to win any other race. And having that, I really mean that, and having this horse, a Son of Dynasty, do the race and win it for us, for me, with a company that I enjoy in the partnership. Though I'm a small partner, I can assure you they make me feel very much part of it, and it's a delight.
The Queen's Plate was actually quite an easy race, because I was always going to drop him out, and I made Legislate obviously my line horse. I remember coming into the straight, and I saw Louis the King go out. I could have followed him out, and I decided, you know what, I'll go for a clear run and follow Legislate. And I thought Legislate would quicken up, and he didn't. All of a sudden I found myself hitting the front so soon, and I was a little bit concerned, but yeah, he won a good race, and it was just another race that worked out really nicely for me.
Louis the King over the top. He's wearing down Futura, drawing to the judge. Futura beats Louis the King.
I must be honest, I think he'll do any distance. He's just that kind of horse, you know. If you put him over 2,000, 2,2, and give him a little bit of a chance, bide his time, and you'll probably outsprint him at the end. You put him in a shorter race, he'll probably do the same thing.
If the owners were willing and wanted to do an international campaign, I think he's the right horse. He's got the temperament, he's got the ability. But in saying that, it is very difficult for us to get our horses out. So they lose a lot of months of race time. So, you know, basically between Jack, Ian and John, they're going to have to make the decision. I mean, you know, I personally would love to see him on the world stage, because I think he'd do South Africa proud.
I'm loath to go on to international stage. It's full of potholes. It's a road that so many have travelled before with disaster. And Dynasty's first horse of the year, son, was a horse called Irish Flame, who went overseas. And it took a long time for him to try and find his feet there, and then in modest company. No, I personally, and I can't dictate to my partners, they're the majority shareholders, but if anybody asked me if I had a vote, I would say I'd much rather have a champion at home than try and attempt anything overseas, really.
Dynasty is the word and the stallion on everybody's mouths at the moment. And boy, he's just set the stage alight with his progeny.
Yeah, Judy, you have to say he's the sire of the moment. They call him the super sire, they call him the sensational sire, they call him, all the superlatives are being added to the word dynasty. It's an incredible pride for us, having bought him as a yearling, and then for me having managed his career in my team, and Highlands, who obviously were happy to buy into him and had the courage and faith to buy into a South African bred stallion, because you know at one point in time South African stallions weren't the be all and end all of the Jetmaster Captain Allen Dynasty have silenced that argument very quickly. Sadly, their stud life is a little short, as we know, because Fort Wood passed away just 2 weeks ago. But there's Dynasty, and Irish Flame's already at stud, Jackson's already at stud, and you've got Legislate and Futura to follow. And I'm going to lead naturally into that next comment. Yes, Futura will go to stud. He has got the heart and the courage, and he's a beautiful-looking son of his father. That line will live on through Dynasty sons, I'm sure.
Does he have the pedigree behind him?
His dam sire, Badger's Drift, won the Derby. He was by Badgerland. He's one of the greatest broodmare sires in the country. Out of a mare who was broodmare of the year on the roof. That part of the pedigree secure. His female line is bred champions. Just last year, the Zimbabwe Horse of the Year, Akina, came out of that family. I bought her as a yearling for Peter Moore. So I love the family. Plum Duff, it's a solid, very, very solid, good South African family. If you asked me who had the better pedigree, Jackson or Legislate or Futura, you've got to say Jackson. His third dam fills a whole page of international champions. But that doesn't necessarily make him a better horse. You know, it's the way they carry their genes. And if Dynasty is going to be a predominant sire, breed with any son that's a champion.
We believe in excellence. We believe that if you're going to do something, you do it to your best ability. We aim to make Balmoral #1 in the Southern Hemisphere, not just South Africa.
Turf Carriers is a family-run business Owned by Mark and Dory Sham and their 3 sons, Michael, Matthew and Marcus. New Turf Carriers has been in long-distance transport since 1995 and pride themselves in excellent service, punctuality and loyalty to their clients. Every single stud farm and every single sale to every single racecourse, New Turf Carriers pride themselves in delivering your horse safely. The welfare of your horse is paramount, and it is to this end that we have our own midway stop between Johannesburg and Cape Town. This is situated at Colesberg, where we have a stabling facility for 60 horses, so that the horses on long trips can get off and have a rest during their journey. The bottom line is, New Turf Carriers take your horse from door to door with pride, passion and punctuality.
Well, nice to be able to catch up with international commentator Richard Hoiles. He's come out to call the Cape Derby, sponsored by Investec. Obviously, he's the voice of the Epsom Derby. We've known him for that. You'll recognise the voice immediately. And Bernard Cantor and his Investec team have taken the initiative and brought Richard out here to call the Cape Investec Derby too. Great to catch up with you, Richard, and certainly welcome to this part of the world.
And thanks to everyone who made the trip possible and made me feel so welcome. It's been a really, really terrific experience.
You're quite well travelled, obviously, Hong Kong, Dubai, and now, first time South Africa. What do you make of the country, firstly?
Well, just fantastic, to be honest, Grant. I mean, the whole, we'll deal with the racing, no doubt, in a moment or two, but just the whole place, really. We've been so impressed to have been able to get around so easily, the cosmopolitan nature of the city, what it's got to offer. Some of the sights and the scenery is obviously spectacular, but in a way it's been quite good to go around the city for a couple of days beforehand, because it sort of puts into context what race day is going to be like, how it's going to differ. I think if you'd done race day first and the city afterwards, it would have been a little bit harder to have blended in and enjoyed it quite so much, really.
Let's go back to the beginning, Richard, and let's talk about how you started, how it came about, and you're an accountant by profession.
In the UK, commentators were a necessary evil, really. It was very formal, tracks were run, you would be aware, in the old school, shirt and tie and old commentators, formally the bare minimum, really. Judge was paramount, commentator was there, but on sufferance. And SIS, who were the sort of pioneers of the betting shop channels in the UK, basically decided they wanted a younger style, and they advertised in the sporting life for race callers. Personally, at that stage, I'd qualified as an accountant, so I always had that to go back to. I'd had a love of racing from a kid. I'd done a lot of presenting and acting. I'd never done any broadcasting, to the naivety that I didn't even realise you had to send in a demo tape. So I sent in my application. By the time I realised you had to send in a demo tape, they'd sent me a letter back saying, "Thank you very much, but you must be an idiot because you haven't sent a demo tape in." And George was listening to it in his car, it crossed, and he was the one who said to the guy, "I know you sent him a rejection letter, but actually I thought he was all right." And from then on, we went into, a more formal audition process, and I just kept getting through, much to my amazement. I was like the kid in the sweet shop. First call that sort of went out anywhere was a little track at Bath on Cup Final Day in 1992. And that was me standing on the top of the box. We had separate calls then, because the racecourses wouldn't have us. They wouldn't have the young ones that SIS had employed. So basically, SIS said, "Don't worry, we'll take our own then." And we worked in all sorts of places, wherever they could pitch us. And mine was a little sentry box halfway up the stand at Bath. And I had a very good stroke of fortune in a way, misfortune for someone else, in the sense that my third race was a 7-runner race. Sheikh Mohammed had 2 in it. And I was aware straight after the race that something wasn't quite right, and some bloke hammered on the outside of the commentary box, and sort of, effed and blind a bit and cocking it up. And of course you panic, thinking, God, what have I done? As well, hang on a sec, you can't hear me. I'm not going out here. So, and what had happened was that the racecourse commentator had called the 2 Sheikh Mohammed horses the wrong way round. Downstairs, where they send the results back to the betting shops, they've sent the result through, and the office have said, PA have sent a different result. It's Richard's first day. Sorry, but he must have got it wrong. So the shops sent out wrong result temporarily until it became apparent that it was the other way round. All I'd done was call a 7-runner race probably pretty badly, but I got them in the right order. But from SIS's point of view, this was why they'd employed all these people. The old guys just weren't up to it anymore, and it was a massive sort of almost coup for me. And yet all I did was call a 7-runner race right and have a stroke of luck, really.
To complete the 8-strong field for the Investec Cape Derby, they're off and racing.
This is your first call, which you had on Saturday in the African continent.
Yeah, and it's intimidating, not from gates jumping to line, it's fitting in with the rest of where the pickups are, what you do before or afterwards. The way people call, use of binoculars versus switching between monitor and bins, and that's very different the world over really. Depends on configuration, it depends what setup you've got. And so, and also from my point of view, I tend to be quite reclusive when I call. But of course yesterday was, you know, you're part of the PR promotion of Investec and the Derby switch, so you've got a lot of things, and it was very difficult to, not so much for the Derby, which I'd rehearsed well in advance, but I knew doing one of the races later on the card was going to be quite stretching, and so it proved. But yeah, it was great. I think he's a good horse who won. So. Yeah.
Urchijal still leads. Over on the far side, Act of War was asked, but the cupboard was bare, and Urchijal has run the finish out of the favourites, and indeed of the field, and will make every single yard. Unbeaten record intact. The Derby goes to Urchijal.
Let's talk about your role with Investec, because that's why you're here. You've been brought out by them. They sponsor the Investec Derby, the Derby, that's at Epsom. And you've been calling that. Everybody here has been calling you and naming you the voice of Epsom. And you've gone and done that for some time now.
Yeah, 2003 was the first, so it is quite a little while now. And having grown up in South London and what have you, that was my local green space really, the closest you ever got to horses. So it's one that's particularly close to my heart. I've been lucky enough to call many of the big races in the UK, but those sort of 2 days with the unique atmosphere of having the Downs transformed from a green open space to like a massive sort of fairground really is great. You know, it's a part of the Derby sort of experience, which Vaughan will appreciate when he comes over. And Investec have proved very innovative sponsors really. The Derby laboured for a little while. You know, Vodafone were a company that was struggling with their sponsorship. They had other ambitions, long associations with Formula One, and they never really put a great deal into it other than on the build-up to race day. It struggled without a sponsor for a year. Investec came in, and within 2 years, it was very much part of their profile. As you know, with the other events they do within sport, they are very enthusiastic. But underpinning it all with racing is a genuine love of the sport, and that's what comes across. Because no one really would have thought the impact of bringing a different style of voice over, and the impact. But yesterday it was really quite obvious. I was quite surprised really, how many people were commenting, and the way people were even at, you know, person on the street follows racing quite so closely. It's quite astonishing that when people came up and said hello. I was quite taken aback. Really.
Well, we take all the English racing here, so
well,
your voice is obviously common.
I sort of realised that because we were flicking through, you know, channels and whatever to get pictures, and there'd be a Force Lass or Weatherby, and because it's the time difference, isn't it? That's the thing. I hadn't really appreciated in Dubai and Hong Kong. If I wanted to watch any English racing, I had to sit up half the night. You know, the fact that you don't necessarily, you do race every day, but not always in each location every day, means that I presume English racing is a major supporter of your turnovers, and I hadn't probably appreciated that quite so much.
Well, you've seen the JMB Met, you called the Cape Derby, and obviously you had a warm order favourite in the form of Act of War, and didn't really go according to the script, did it? So you couldn't have really rehearsed that one.
Had it been in the UK, I would have called in beat earlier than I did here, because, you know, all the time everyone had been saying to me, and it's a great lesson really about, you know, almost have you got your lines rehearsed for Act of War, and we'd had the conversation at dinner the other night how you just cannot have rehearsed lines because you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. But it became pretty obvious, I thought, off the home turn when Pierre asked him to go after the leader, and Gavin was still sitting pretty quietly, and it was Urchijal's stride really. He got into that superb rhythm, and then I thought it was going to be close, and then of course the stamina ran out as well. I don't think you see stamina beat him, because frankly I didn't think even at the 400 he looked as if he would beat Urchijal, frankly. But it was a sound tactical ride to bring out the stamina of a horse, the only horse in the field that won at 2000, so the game plan was pretty straightforward. But maybe the fact that Act of War was so close, did well to hold on for second really to some horses that...
I was going to say, that position in the calling for second was quite a tight one.
Yeah, it was. I thought the Grey got it near side actually, but then when you see them in a forest of heads and there's 4 in there, I only called 2 races yesterday and they both had dead heats for places. 4th in the Derby and 3rd later on in the card. And that emphasises quite the sort of competitive nature of some of the races. But I think it'll be interesting to see how good Urchijal turns out to be where he goes. One would imagine that with that ownership and what have you, Dubai will very much, with Mike, Dubai will be on the agenda. But whether or not that changes the plans for some of those other horses like Cold as Ice, like Act of War, who potentially would have been going internationally off the back of this.
Different styles of commentary is obviously something that was unique on Saturday. We heard Jahan Malherbe, we heard Ravon Schmidt, we heard yourself and also Alistair Cohen. And there's certainly different generations and different styles, all unique.
Absolutely, and I think you've also got Andrew Cohen, who was there calling from Johannesburg, I believe, and he's a younger lad, and we were chatting about stars and about how they come on. And one of the big pieces of advice that I had when I started is you must be yourself. No, there isn't a right or wrong way to call a race in terms of the techniques you use. Obviously, there's a right way when people listen as to how you do it, but you shouldn't be intimidated to move off binoculars if you've got a better shot on a TV monitor that's now watched by a greater percentage of the audience than ever before. Big screens. People don't carry binoculars the same way that they used to. You might be 100% correct in going down the field binoculars-wise, but you must at least be aware of the pictures that your audience is seeing. In the UK, you're called doubles, TV, radio, so you've got to service all those audiences. It's hard to read a race as well when they're little pinpricks. You can get the order right, but you can't really see how they're going, what's pulling, who's caught wide, which are all key tactical elements. So everyone's got their own individual style. You need to find what works for you, and then you need to be brave enough to stick to it. I would never call sitting down, and yet I went up to the commentary box and and I just wouldn't. It's nothing right or wrong, but for me, my breathing would be just. I'd have nowhere to go. It's like singing sitting down. It's sort of I wouldn't be. The throat would close because you can't get the same air in, and so I would stand and use handheld bins that I would pick up and put down far more. There's no right or wrong way.
Let's talk about the call of Epsom now. Ravon's going to be making the trip out, and he'll be calling a race out at Epsom. It's not going to be quite the same, is it? Because there you've got a couple of patches where the horses disappear from view.
Yes, I mean they will flick in and out of view slightly. The simple fact is that. The Kenilworth side is quite interesting because it's quite a good course for binoculars because they're on the side on for you for a long way. It's a long sweeping turn, whereas Epsom really is a horseshoe, and the commentary box is positioned towards the end of the horseshoe, the open end of the horseshoe, where the finishing line is obviously. So if you think about it, they're opposite you after they've gone about 300 metres. Then they run progressively further away from you. Your binoculars would be a back shot for the next 3 furlongs, and frankly, you'll do a better job off the TV, personally thinking, but it may well be that Ravon's style of calling will be that, he would want to sit with the mic stand, and that's absolutely fine. It's a way different things, and that's the reason for going up. I spent the first few years with Jahan. Chatting is extremely helpful, actually. Just chatting about the different season, what he used where. You've got a difficult straight course at Kenilworth, just like Windsor at home, on an angle, coming towards you, angled winning line.
Let's go back to one of the derbies that obviously everybody remembers when Australia hit the front. He was such a boom horse for the derby, Richard. Everybody was talking about him. He had a blue blood. He was so well bred. Did you have any sort of rehearsed script with him? Because it was a polished ride, obviously, but when he hit the front, it was showing that you had anticipated him doing that.
When you think he's won the race is when you're beginning to think. I didn't think, I'm not a good marker of myself anyway. Part of the reason I probably could commentate was I was always told to watch racing with the sound down, which is what I've always done, and so I'm not a good listener back. But no, you're trying to find the sort of the story that goes with the winner, and really the story for me was the fact that her parents had both won classics at Epsom, but it was a bit wordy and it didn't really flow, and it was a little bit too complicated. I wish I'd said something a little bit cleaner. He won well enough to be able to get away with it, but there was an element of I won't prepare a line, but I will have an idea of what the story is. And we're talking about Urtijal and unbeaten and making it a test of stamina. Both of those were pretty easy to pop onto. Obviously, if Active War had won, he was probably the dominant horse of his generation. That would have been the guy, and anything else was a shock, really. But no, I think you'd. I haven't overly been happy with Derby calls. I don't know why, compared to some of Champion Stakes or some of the things. And I think it's the one that's a bit too close to my heart to be a bit cold and calculating, which is probably better. So.
If there was one race course or one race in the world that you'd still like to call and have on your resume, what would that be?
I don't know. The big ones have their own sort of, I'm very much a racing fan at heart, so it's not the fact I came over yesterday to call the Investec Derby per se. Obviously that was very important, that's the reason I was here, but it's the opportunity to meet people, and it could have been a run-of-the-mill meeting at Kenilworth on a Wednesday, and I'd have had as much enjoyment personally out of that. So I think it's probably more countries to go and call in, maybe, rather than big races. I don't really tick big races off in the UK. I was happy at Toaster on a wet Tuesday, because that would have been the meeting I would have gone to. You were at Plumpton, that was fantastic. I mean, that was my local track growing up. That's where I first went. So as a result, I love going back there. People find it strange, but I'm very lucky. I don't need motivating for small meetings, because I find them as fascinating. Big meetings can eventually be long days and quite hard work. So maybe Australia and New Zealand to go and call in.
A couple of last questions, Richard. Is this a reciprocal deal where you're going to be coming out to South Africa more than one occasion? And obviously you've got Jack and Tom. I'm sure they're going to be looking forward to coming out here and maybe doing a bush trip.
I hope so. I really do. I mean, everyone's been so welcome. You know, at the end of the day, we were over here on the back of Investec doing something novel, and Ravon coming over. But it's enabled me to realise how many people I know over here. And as I say, if I do come back, I hope it'll be maybe just as I slightly see the other racing in other regions as well. I think it's important to get a perception of the country as a whole. We've got very good members of Cape Town, but I think it's important for context to, you know, do Johannesburg and Durban. I'd like to try and see that side of it. It's a lot easier once you've met the people. So I hope I'm back, particularly this time of year.
I think your two boys, Jack and Tom, will enjoy coming and seeing maybe a bit of a game drive in some of the bushveld.
Yeah, I really hope so, because as I said, I was late developer traveller-wise, because I didn't get out till Hong Kong when I was mid-20s, you know. My kids at the moment are 7 and 3, and the thought of bringing them over here, I mean, Sarah's, you know, she's touched on a few last rays before we go. 3 of the kids, and we were debating, we reckon probably another 4 years before, but this would now be a real, you know, must come to, because of so much you've got to offer around Cape Town, the lack of time difference, the weather at this time of year, and the ability to see lots of different things. I could just see Tom chasing the penguins around boulders. It must be a great relief for them that he didn't come, I've promised them.
Well, you're the voice of the Epsom Derby, you're now the voice of the Cape Derby as well. It's been great having you here. Thanks very much.
And thanks to everyone who made the trip possible and made me feel so welcome. It's been a really, really terrific experience.
Second or no. So number 14, All Is Secret, is victorious. Well Witcher.
And for the lads won it. Shay takes the lead. Shay wins the Elgos.
Well, it's been great having Julie Alexander. In fact, we had the whole host of presenters working on JMB Met Day, but Julie's been down. She was active, obviously, in getting the connections of Futura to chat, and we obviously a great insert there compiled by the team. But also, Julie is going to be very involved in the big race meeting on Tuesday, the 10th of February. That's the CTS R2.5 million race. It's for graduates of the March yearling sale, and what a field it's assembled as well. Julie Alexander standing by to take you through it.
16 of the finest thoroughbreds purchased off the 2013 Cape Premier Yearling Sale Book 2 will be lining up for the R2.5 million CTS 3-year-old challenge on Tuesday night at Turfentine Racecourse over 1,400 metres. The race has attracted runners from Cape Town, KwaZulu-Natal and Port Elizabeth, and so the stage is set for a thrilling race. Trainer Sean Terry could possibly hold the key with 3 of his runners. Captain Clipper hasn't been seen since July last year and will need to overcome a wide draw. However, he is the only runner in the race that has won over course and distance.
To make up, then all the bids, Rough Justice, Majestic Bay. Now Captain Clipper picks up the lead with 150 to go. To post we go, a chaser on the outside, Hispon. Iwo Jima further back, Majestic Bay. Runs on nicely for the place money, but it's Captain Clipper to win it from to post we go.
He's a very good horse. I think the race probably coming a week or two too soon. Having said that, I have got 2 gallops into him and they've both been very good. He's drawn a little wide, and if he doesn't race too fresh, I'm sure he'll be thereabouts.
Siren's Call is one of 6 fillies that will be taking her chance against the opposite sex, and has proven she can hold her own in their company when finishing 4th behind Unparalleled in last year's Grade 2 Investic Dingans. She has a good draw and is the best weighted horse in the field.
Makeup, Unparalleled with a 3-length advantage. French Navy along the inside rail. Illuminati and Harry Son are trying to make inroads, but Unparalleled has been perfectly ridden. He's 3 lengths in front, and Unparalleled will win the Investic Dingans in good style. Second goes to Harry Son. Then came French Navy, Siren's Call and Illuminati.
How's her prep gone?
Yes, very nicely. I spoke to Peter de Bay and we decided to ease right off her and freshen her up for the 1400. As you know, it is quite sharp for her, even though she did run second to Majmu course and distance. So that's what we've done. We've freshened her up. We're bringing her back 90%, 85% ready. And we're hoping that pays off. She's well drawn. Pierre gets on with her. She has got a lot in her favour.
You've also got Trophy Wife having her 3rd run after a rest and should be cherry ripe.
Yeah, I think she's had an exceptional preparation, and if she settles in running, should be running on strongly.
Young conditioner Johan Janse van Vuren trains Astro, who ran 2nd to his stable companion and Dingaan's winner Unparalleled in a graduation plate over 1,160 metres last time.
Spanish Dawn on the outside is Astro. Between runners, Unparalleled is now starting to loom up a big danger. Here comes Unparalleled with a storming effort to win going away. Unparalleled beats Astro. Spanish Dawn 3rd.
Jules, I don't think he'll have a problem with the extra couple of 100 metres. His mother was an Oaks filly. I think she was placed in an Oaks. We always thought he's a type of horse that would enjoy a little bit further when he matures and learns to relax early on in his races. We did, however, have a slight hiccup in his preparation. His last gallop a couple of days ago, he pulled an IP muscle, and we had to back off him completely the last 2 days. I've had both our vets, Rob and Kobe Tadmore, working on him a lot, and we got him moving comfortably. Just obviously, we missed a bit of work, and from the draw, we probably have to ride him quietly early on, get him relaxed for him to see the 1400.
Paul Peter also has 3 runners, and the one that makes most appeal is Forest Fox, who seems to be a different horse since his gelding last year.
Forest Fox is slowly but surely getting his mind on the job. Look at Forest Fox from an impossible position, absolutely flying. This is a good win. This is a good horse. Forest Fox will win it going away. 2nd to lock him up. Then came the Big Easy and Miss K.
The gelding's done the trick.
Yes, definitely the gelding has done the trick because he has shown us ability from day one. But he wasn't putting it in race day. He was very coltish, jumping around, throwing us around, and as soon as we gelded him, his whole attitude has changed, and he's producing the work that we thought he could do. And in his races, he's a little bit outpaced early on, but he puts in such a tremendous finish, and his prep has gone very, very well.
Expecting a big run?
Yes, definitely. We brought him here to show him the track, and he handled it like a professional, so please God, you'll be right there.
Eliza Doolittle was very impressive when making her debut only a couple of days ago. She won on that debut. How's she come on from that run, and is this a big step up for her?
Yes, she has come on well since the run. She's a top filly. She hasn't been to Turfentine, so we brought her on Friday. We just cantered her around just to show her the track, and she also took it in her stride. Okay, it's a bit soon after the maiden win, but for $2.5 million, we've got to take our chances.
London, been a little bit disappointing in its last few starts, but if reproduces some of her earlier form, could get into the mix.
Yes, she's been very disappointing of late. We found a little muscle problem, which we think we've sorted out. Her again, she also should be in the first five, please God.
Gold Cup Girl in London. These two are 3 lengths clear of Will I Do, but London seems to be going the better, and she's now gone clear by a length. Gold Cup Girl is second. Will I Do's out in third, but London's going to get stronger as the race goes on, and she wins it by 3. Second to Gold Cup Girl. Then came Will I Do, and Sense of Style finished fourth.
We're in for an exciting race at Turfentine Racecourse on Tuesday night, where one of the 16 runners will become an instant millionaire or millionairess.
Gavel House is the leading website for trading horses online. Selling your racehorse, mare or even a share in a yearling is so easy on Gavel House. You can browse our sires directory to match the best mating for your mare, with text description, videos and up-to-date sires reports. Gavelhouse.com is the best way to sell your horse. We reach places others can't, where buyers and sellers deal direct and pay no commission. Go to gavelhouse.com.
Thanks to Gavel House for their contribution to tonight's show. The shares and syndications, the Deer Hunter. This is by Braveton Soldier out of the mare Gentle Breeze. He's a 2012 gelding, and they're syndicating him at R7,125 for a 10% share. He's a precocious individual who qualifies for the Ready to Run race in 2016. If you're wanting to get involved, you need to contact Alistair Gordon in KZN. The Deer Hunter is a lovely, strong individual who on looks and pedigree should come to hand fairly soon. He has a good action and is in light work after having a short break for his gelding. His Damn Gentle Breeze was a winner at 2 in the USA and a listed place performer too. She's had 4 foals to race, 3 of them are winners. We also have a yearling called Cup King. Now he is by King's Chapel. He's out of the mare Fields of France. He's a 2013 colt and we're asking 120,000 Rand. This is a classy, well put together colt, and if you are wanting to get involved, you need to contact Rathmore Stud in KZN. His Damn Fields of France was a 5 times winner and also was placed in a listed race. Cup King is a half brother to Flag of France, a 6-time winner, who also earned over 500,000 Rand. He's a great Pinnock prospect for future sales too, and if you do want to get involved, you need to contact the team out at Rathmore. Thanks to Gavel House for their contribution and sponsorship once again. Also very noticeable were the Gavel House girls at the Claveflay Stud Golf Day. We thank them for their continued support. Well, it looks like a fascinating race up in Johannesburg. 2.5 million Rand, I think 2-time winners. It's going to be a massive prize injection for some lucky owner. There were horses in that race that didn't cost a lot of money. So a great lotto experience and a lotto ticket if you've got a runner in the CTS race up in Johannesburg on Tuesday night. That's it from the show. Thanks very much to the rest of the Breeding to Win team who are out catching up with the winners of the JMB Met Futura. We look forward to catching up with Richard Hoiles once again, and we certainly hope you join us with Breeding to Win next Sunday, and enjoy the rest of your evening.